Information ebe kan say HM say one of the boys at NPP for edi omo dirty works now has been arrested because okotwa ntoro edi ato eye Supreme Court Justice bi ajono mani Mahama eyi no say omontena eye petition na Ghana for edi brain say wonjina so no mfanyi Chief Justice edi Adenta Kumi and I say one of the guys NPP for do omo dirty work efe na Adenta Kumi no ebusia okoka ho asem na ebusia nsa oka ye no wanka ne yi ne wo hu ye no enye no ene oka ye enti bia na ifo ejina so e dey arrest nyabotre na meche nsem ni mu enfa nkyerem Adenta Kumi a woye former parliamentary candidate edema Adenta on the ticket of NPP ekwatena Asempa FM e woka say o video ni area dance say John Mani Mahama nkofo na woyi wo so montena Chief Justice ni petition na say petition na nkofo bi de ba say omunyi Chief Justice edi no nkofo na John Mani Mahama eyi wo mo eso mo betena nsem so mo nhwe nsem no o makotena one of the restaurant ewo Accra Airport residential areas ne baby edi petition no enkomo na no na chi na say before say nsem we Adenta Kumi ba bonta be campo na video ni be ba bonte no Adenta Kumi di kan ba bonte be ye de say John Mani Mahama en cancel petition no sa committee na wate no campo undissolved it because etia Ghana mbra e kan sem wonworan bi e de fa aye sa committee na John Mani Mahama etiye no na e wo ho na kofa aye video bi na say kofa aye allegations bi a e ba ya wo che mu say nkofo bi akotena se Supreme Court judge na John Mani Mahama eyi no eka ho ene eye counselor na wo ginam ede ma nipa na wo twere petition na ye fe ne Daniel Ofori no eka ho acheso omudi petition ho enkomo na video na Adenta Kumi eka no sei na video no etie.
Specifically on this, no, you allege say there was a restaurant in Accra.
Yes, a restaurant in Accra.
And three justices of the
Supreme Court.
Yeah. Two of which are members of the committee.
Of the committee which
a probe Chief Justice.
Yes, under said by the President under Article 146.
Good. It is our two Supreme Court justices, no? Justice Scott Puaman.
Yes.
Justice Asiedu.
Yes.
And the other justice of the Supreme Court now we can say a for injunction application. No?
Yes. He was instrumental.
Or come on, assembly to go.
Yes.
Now on also can two justices now.
Yes.
And that justice near why?
Justice Yoni
Kolendi.
Yes.
Good. And the justices means.
Yes.
And why would do any restaurant?
Yeah, we are all the evidence is there. The record is there.
Record is there, meaning say, video or picture to show.
Adam say we have all the records. You see, I don't want to go into the exigencies of the matter. We want the president. We are giving the president all the time to consider the petition. So we don't want to preempt anything at this point.
But as far as you are concerned, no evidence be here to prove your case. No,
it's readily available with the witnesses also.
Witnesses are no in our restaurant.
Witnesses, witnesses. But one or two they are ready.
Ready to testify.
Yes, they are ready to testify.
And you saw these justices, but did you see the lawyer for one of the petitioners against the Chief Justice.
That is when that person came to join.
Onuatv joined it,
Even though he was already in the
restaurant
location. And to Obi Jinabe because say, this is a monstrous lie. And I say, probably made a mature, So if you are referring to me, it's me. But the question is,
yes,
were you there at the period? That's the first question. If you are there at the period, the so and so, that's, in fact, you have to answer the first question before we know. Were you there at that period, between that 7:30 to 8:30? Were you there?
Were you in the restaurant?
Were you in the restaurant?
Eba onono aba because it is a monstrous lie. No such meeting took place. That's specific. It is very easy to fact check that. We know those who get justice through negotiation. In the first part of Niwe na or say a intro meeting biasa ankoso.
I'm not sure.
And they are very easy to fact check.
Now after say video we make waves to internet no so no nkofo bebre ba bonten e be chim video no mo chem say nsema de ntakumi e ka no any video no ebo abira je say any video no je say align wo kwan bia so nsem say na nkofo no mo cheche video no mu no a free e join news for buy no nsem say no mo so e kan.
To give this context, you need to understand the petition. So the petition, as we learned a couple of days ago, claims that on Thursday, last week Thursday, on the 15th of May 2025, between the hours between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m.,
right,
Justice Gabriel Pwaman, Justice Adibu Asedu, Justice Yoni Kulendi, were seen at a restaurant, right? In a particular restaurant. They mentioned the particular restaurant's name, having dinner with Thaddeus Sori.
right.
And Thaddeus Sori is counsel for one of the petitioners, Daniel Fori. And at this particular meeting, this petition also claims that they were overheard discussing the petition and the process that is currently underway. Now, again, the petition itself clarifies that, as we know, Justice Gabriel Pwaman is the chair of the investigative committee set up by the president under the Constitution 146.
Right.
Justice Adibu Asedu is a member of that committee. The two Supreme Court
judges.
The petition claims that these two Supreme Court judges were in this restaurant together with Yoni Kulendi, Justice Yoni Kulendi, who we know is not a member of the investigative committee, but he's a Supreme Court
member of the Supreme Court, and also Thaddeus Sori.
And also Thaddeus Sori, who is the counsel for one of the petitioners. Now, the petition, when I say petitions, I mean the petition to remove the CJ. Now, this petition that makes this allegation then goes on to claim that at this meeting, they discussed the petition, and it was part of a plot to manipulate the ongoing hearing, which, remember, this began last week, Thursday. The formal hearing began last week, that this was part of the plot, and they had gone there to meet to conspire to manipulate the process. So on the back of which he then requested the president to dissolve the committee.
Five-member committee. So it's instructive to know that this footage was taken after the first hearing.
After the first hearing. That, and in the petition also creates that context for us. So this is the allegation, right? So let's watch, and I will do this in frames on the back of what we now know is a petition. So we'll pause it here.
All right.
So this is the entrance of the said restaurant. This is the entrance of the said restaurant. Now, what we see here are three individuals. We can confirm that the three individuals entering the restaurant at the time are three justices, right? And it's important as we go through this, you see how it relates, contradicts or confirms anything that the petition had said. The first in front, we believe, is Justice Kofi. Okay, that's the first in front. The second, there, the slightly taller one behind, is Justice Yoni Kulendi. The shorter one is Justice Adibu Asedu. Okay, so these three went there. The first thing you see immediately, as it relates to the petition, is that it has no Justice Gabriel Palman.
The chair of this five-member
The chair of
committee.
wasn't there. At least it's not captured in the CCTV footage. So the three walking, it's Justice Kofi, Justice Kolendi, and the shorter one we see here is Justice Adibuasedu, right? So it doesn't have in there Justice Gabriel Palman, as has been alleged in the petition. So that's the first thing to note.
And out of the three, the short one is a member of this five-member committee.
So out of the three, that's important. The short one here, the short justice, because we're just describing so you can see what, is the only member of the five-member committee, right? And he's the Supreme Court judge who's on the committee. The chair, as has been alleged, isn't in this particular footage that we've secured, that we're showing you. We'll move this on. So then they make their way into the restaurant, and again you see here more clearly, you see this is another frame of the footage. You will pause it here, and then you see another frame. So in the lead is Justice Kofi here. There is, now you see a bit more clearly, that is the Justice Adibuasedu, who is a member of the committee, and then following Justice Kolendi. Right, and they were moving into the restaurant, having entered from the front. So we continue. Now, pause it for a second. Move it on slightly so that I want to show you something. Pause it here. Now, remember that as they move, the people are already seated. But I want you to focus on this particular area here.
The rest appears to be minding their own business.
Yeah, they're not of importance. But this area here, they move on. They move on to their seat. And then pause. So you begin to see, so the two other justices continue to the corner.
Right.
And presumably they had already secured a table. So this is a restaurant, from what we understand. You can't just walk in. You must have called to reserve a seat. So they had walked into the corner there, going to sit down. So that is Justice Kofi and Justice Adibuasedu going to sit. But Justice Yoni Kolendi, somebody sees him, recognizes him, shakes his hand, it interacts a bit with this individual. I don't know who that person is, but let's move on. And then immediately,
somebody stood up.
And there's a hug. There's a hug, right? Embraces him, hugs him briefly.
And is this person a person of interest?
A person of interest. We can say that this individual is Thaddeus Sori, right? And again, it's important. He was already seated.
When they came in.
Already having his dinner with somebody else that had already come to the place with, or maybe the person met him there, but he's already seated, right? When the three justices entered the restaurant. And in fact, the first person the Justice Yoni Kolendi saw was this individual who was sitting across him, and then he gets up and hugs him. So he was already seated in the restaurant. We can move this along. And then so there's this brief hug, right? And then quick pleasantries exchanged. Then you see, and then pause again, then you see that the two other justices have already gone to their corner, the seat that they've reserved. But then you see, at this point, Yoni Kolendi, so people have already seen him and trying to hug him. But then you see that Thaddeus walks, because he obviously had now seen the other, justices of the Supreme Court having exchanged a pleasantry with the Yoni Kolendi. He walks on. He walks on, and this is the most important part. He walks on, shakes hands
with them,
and with the first justice he met after Yoni Kolendi, which we say is Justice Kofi. And let's play this on, because this shows us the timelines. And shakes hands with him. The justice goes to sit down, shakes hands and bows to Justice Adibuasedu, who is a member of the investigative committee. Bows again, bows to the other justice as well. Shakes hands with him. And
at this stage, Yoni Kolendi appears to be engaging in some kind of conversation with some other people.
Some other people, because they've seen him, they know him. I know Yoni. He was a very famous lawyer before. People see him and they recognize him. So he was talking. At that point, there was no conversation between Yoni and him. He had just gone to, in a few seconds, shake hands, bow, and he was leaving. Let's play this on. So this lasts a few seconds, this conversation, this brief handshake, pleasantries. And then he returned, that is Thaddeus Sori, returns and looks at it and takes his seat, right? And takes his seat. We'll play this again. Now, if you look at this brief pleasantries that was exchanged, it lasted a total of 10 seconds, if you like, between the time that he goes there, exchanges hands, greets, not more than 20 seconds, because this footage itself is less than 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Right.
Shakes and comes. Now, a few things that are important. We need to play this from the beginning. A few things that we see is important here. Remember that the petition had said that there was a meeting at which a discussion was had about the process itself. People heard them discussing and they sat, and this was a dinner. So this was a premeditated dinner that had been arranged to meet and, as the petition used the word, manipulate the process.
Right.
The evidence that we see, at least in this footage, shows something completely different, which is that, one, Tadio Story was already seated with somebody else when the three justices enter. And indeed, when he recognizes them, the two other justices, after he had exchanged pleasantries with Yoni Kulendi, he walks to them, seated in the corner, and greets them, bows, as all lawyers will do, and returns to his seat, right? So this doesn't show evidence of meeting, of course, to talk about, because I wonder, you have to ask the question, that pleasantry, you're seeing it here. This is the area here. That is the only time we see any contact between himself and the other two, in addition to the first exchange of pleasantries that is had with Yoni. And then he returns to his seat. And it's important, remember that Thaddeus himself had put out a rebuttal.
A rebuttal, and we'll try and bring that on.
And they were, and I tell say, be a knife. Arrested ya denta kumia. Ni nyina ne say, and some denta kumi a false allegation. We need evidence to back whatever he said. At the far, yes, justice now, boni din, any video, ni mwene mkofo na say, mkofo na wo try to almost say, omo discuss about the petition. No, we need evidence be against you. You want who say justice code you about bontine, I be posting maybe on Facebook, I watch him say, sympathizers are omo NPP mono, omo nko denta kumi fee because he will be arrested. But any muka say he has already been picked.